And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That's right. It is time for Coffee Talk, where we will have a conversation about some of what's going on in the news and in the world today. Some things you may know about and some things you may not. Isn't that right, Dusty? Dusty is sitting right here for those of you who can't see, or so those of you who can. And of course, you can find me on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Come here, Dusty. On at Coffee Talk Live or Prepper University. And you can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat, if you are so inclined to use that service, as well as Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon as we get ready to fly off into the world of insane news because none of it makes any damn sense. Isn't that right, Dusty? And for those of you who are listening and not able to see what's going on, naturally, I will read through as many of the comments as I can in the live portion so that you can keep up with the conversation. And Dusty, everybody, over here, keeping me company for the time being until she gets bored. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in on the live portion so far. I see Helter is here, Dragon, Urban, Cruising is here, says Brewing Coffee. Dilo is here, Armored Ghost, Monkey is here, Velvet Pilot has made it today, as well as South Florida. Preparedness Veteran said he was on a little vacation. Frankie M is here. Armored Ghost says Ducky looks happiest upside down so far. Yeah, she likes to be cradled. She's a very, very easy animal to manage. Most of them are. There's a few that I work with that are still pretty feral, and it's not so easy to even touch them, let alone pick them up or do anything with them. And I also see Bingo and Deanna. Deanna Martin has joined us here today. Glad you all could make it. Thanks for popping in and saying hello as we get ready to look at some of what's going on in the news today. What do you think, Dusty? Should we look? Dusty is just lost in the moment. That's all right. In the world of stupidity and ignorance, and we're going to start off in Boston. Of course, I'm from Boston, and this is the Washington Examiner. And this is absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Washington Examiner says Boston City Hall mistakenly sends out electeds of color party invitations to the entire council. What does that mean? Well, you're about to find out. And I see Semper Fi has joined us. Glad you could make it. So reading into the article, Boston City Hall official accidentally sent out invitations to an exclusive race-based only holiday party intended only for electeds of color. That is, black lawmakers. It's a nice way of saying it. To the entire city council on Tuesday, Denise Dos Santos, Democratic Mayor Michelle Wu's director of city council relations, intended to invite the 6 councilors of color and a guest each to an event hosted by the mayor on Wednesday, but the email went council-wide, prompting an apology for the error in a follow-up email 15 minutes later. The city council consists of 6 councilors of color and 7 white councilors. There's the mayor. So the Asian mayor wants only black people at her little party. I wanted to apologize for my previous email regarding a holiday party for tomorrow, Dos Santos wrote, according to the Boston Herald. I did send that invitation to everyone by accident, and I apologize if my email may have offended or come across as so. Sorry for any confusion this may have caused. So I'm worried about you being offended about my email but not about the fact that you want to have a party with blacks only. And everyone else on the council can go screw themselves. Councilor Frank Baker, who is white, called the email divisive and unfortunate. He said he was not offended by being excluded, but did not consider the invitation a good move given recent tensions among the city council. I don't really get offended too easily. To offend me, you're going to have to do much more than just not invite me to a party, Baker said. I find it unfortunate that with the temperature the way it is, that we would further the division. I agree. Elected officials of color defended the event, however, claiming the elected officials of color group had been around for more than a decade and that the city council makes spaces for all kinds of groups. Is there a space for an all-white group in the city council? Can I have an all-white group there as a lawmaker in the state of Massachusetts? How would that work out? Just asking. Anybody have any clue how that would go? Brian is here. Glad you could make it. Preparedness says if it was the other way around, whites only, there would be a huge uproar. Exactly. And Booker said, good afternoon, listening in the background. Urban says if a white person identified as a person of color, are they allowed to be at least the +1? I don't know. Good question. And Hector says, last I checked, excluding people because of their skin color was racist. Unless you're black, apparently. Otherwise, what can I tell you? And Sven says slavery has been around for centuries, so that is important now? Question mark. Slavery still goes on in a lot of places around the world. You just don't hear about it because nobody cares about what happens in those countries. Elected officials of color defended the event. Oh, I already read that part. Let me see. Your email should not offend anyone, and there is absolutely no confusion. Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson, a black woman, told Dos Santos in an email also shared with her colleagues, just like there are groups that meet based on shared interest of cultural backgrounds, it's completely natural for elected officials of color to gather for a holiday celebration. Many groups celebrate and come together in various ways, and it's not about excluding anyone. Instead, it's about creating spaces for like-minded individuals to connect and support each other. So it's not about excluding anyone, but it's for blacks only. And hosted by an Asian woman. Wrap that around your mind. I love the way that they double talk that. It's not about excluding anyone. I don't know. I feel pretty excluded. I think the white council members feel pretty excluded from that event. I feel like they've been put out. What do you think, Dusty? What do you think, Dusty? Are you falling asleep? It's boring Dusty to sleep. Poor thing. And Dragon says the Asian mayor is there just to check race boxes. She's a token minority. That could very well be. And Brian said, where's the white privilege liberals claim we have? I don't know. Because again, if there was an email that went out that said we only want white council members to attend some type of event, oh man, there would be hell to pay for it. The NAACP would be filing a lawsuit. Al Sharpton would be down there with picket on a picket line. All hell would break loose if it was an all-white event. Helter says, last I checked, excluding people because of their skin color was racist. Yeah, you said that twice. It must have bounced in there again. And speaking of stupid, as we shift around, we're going to jump from Massachusetts all the way to the other end of the country on the West Coast into California. You want to go to California, Dusty? Semper Fi says, don't forget to smash the like button. Thank you, Semper. Absolutely. If you don't mind pressing the thumbs up, I sure do appreciate it. And Ragnar is here. Ragnar, Thor's hammer, made it today. Armored says, it's really amazing how detached the political elites are from regular people. Yeah. Well, not so much, because they can get away with doing a lot of things that we can. And that is absolutely something that people in the real world will do, is create that kind of division on purpose. Daily Mail, all the way in Los Angeles now. It says Los Angeles's busy I-110 is shut down during rush hour as a crowd of protesters demanding ceasefire in Gaza bring traffic to a standstill. And we talked a little bit about this kind of crap yesterday with these protesters. Demonstrators called for a halt to the ongoing Hamas-Israel war, bringing the traffic on Interstate 110 to a standstill on Wednesday morning. The protest was organized by a group called If Not Now, characterizing itself as a movement of American Jews supporting the end of U.S. support for Israel's war on Gaza. And, you know, you can be Jewish in namesake only because it's your nationality, but not really connected to the religion at all. Just saying. The protest started roughly at 9 a.m. this morning, with photos and videos capturing demonstrators linking arms in the southbound lanes of the 110 freeway while chanting "Down, down with occupation." The California Highway Patrol responded to the scene and asked people to leave. Officers can be seen tying protesters' hands and taking them into custody shortly after 10 a.m. And they mean zip tying, basically, as opposed to handcuffing them. And I'll let you look, for those of you who can see. There's the photo. That's basically all of the protesters right there. It looks like there's not more than 20, maybe 25 sitting down there in the way and blocking the traffic. So 25 of them got together. Look, they got a little makeshift menorah candle sitting in the middle of the road. There's another shot right here. So, yeah, if I block the highway in California, somehow halfway around the world in the Middle East, Gaza and Hamas and Israel and Iraq and Iran and the Jordan and the United Arab Emirates and anybody else that has their hand in something that's going on down there will take notice and say, gee, traffic was impeded for a few minutes this morning in California. I guess we better call this war off. Makes sense to me. I don't know what's wrong with you people. I don't know what's wrong with you people. And Armin says Los Angeles is becoming LOL land. Frankie says, good thing I work at nights. I-110 is already a parking lot. Yeah, I know. That's how come they were able to get out there. It's slow as hell anyways. If that freeway was moving, then they'd never be able to link arms out there. Helter says protesting putzes. They don't realize what they're protesting. They're basically calling for their own extermination and oppression. Good point. Frankie M says, without having these morons doing this. Oh, yeah. That's a continuation of his previous comment. And Monkey said, just like those that block the roads in protest of climate change by making climate change worse. And Armin says, these protesters really need better hobbies. They don't have any hobbies. That's the problem. And Dragon says, I remember young millennials blocking the freeways when Trump was elected back in late 2016. Yep. And were they drugged before a council and given like decades-long sentences like the people in January 6th for obstructing or trying to overthrow the government or some kind of nonsense? Dusty, are you awake? Are you awake, Dusty? She is still like up on my neck here. But this is pitiful. It just strikes me as funny. I think it's funny that one, they claim to be Jewish, but just because, like I said, they claim to be doesn't mean that they are. I don't know if these people are Jewish. I have no way of knowing. And are you Jewish just as far as your nationality is concerned? You have Hebrew heritage. Do you practice the religion? Or is it just one or the other? Which is it? I don't know. Are you some spin-off of traditional Israeli religion, or what is commonly referred to as Jewish faith? Because it has splinter groups, just like Christianity does. And just like Islam or a lot of these other religions have all these splinter groups that break off into different categories. So are you truly among some of the core believers in the Jewish faith, or are you some weird splinter group that they typically don't have anything to do with? Because there are groups that they won't even talk to because they're so far removed from what's in the Torah that the traditional Jew won't associate with them. Helter says, I think there's some internet lag. Is anyone else seeing any lag? And Deanna says they should glue themselves to the road with environmentally safe glue. Environmentally safe glue would be made from horses. I don't think they do that anymore. Do they still make glue out of horses? I don't think so. And Preparedness says he has no lag. I think it's just you, Helter. Oh, yes. And since we're talking about the Middle East, and Urban says he keeps getting disconnected. That's because you're in Canada, Urban. And you know it's very heavily censored now, so I must be talking about something Trudeau doesn't like. You're probably going to get lag now because I said Trudeau. And Frankie says, good feed. Okay, good. I try my best. And I don't have Wi-Fi hooked up here. It's hardlined into the system, so to avoid problems. Since we're on the Middle East, we'll jump to Turkey. We're going to jump from California to Turkey now. And this is an article from the National Post. Funniest news I've heard all day. If this is God, he's got great timing. He's got great timing. Video, Turkish MP says that Israel won't escape the wrath of Allah and then suffers a massive heart attack. Perfect. I love it. The irony of that is hilarious. Turkish member of parliament collapsed after suffering a heart attack on Tuesday at the end of a live-streamed parliamentary speech in which he said Israel wouldn't be able to escape the wrath of Allah. The incident was reported in the Times Israel. Hasan Bitmez, 53, of the conservative Felicity Party? What the hell is that? Was delivering an address at the General Assembly of the Turkish Parliament. We can perhaps hide from our consciences, but not from history, he said at the end of his remarks. Then, in reference to Israel, he added, you will not escape the wrath of Allah. He then says, I salute you all, and then immediately collapsed at the podium with his head hitting the floor, and fellow members of the assembly rushed to his side. And there he is laying under the table. And Semper says our internet is wonky here in Western New York too. And Urban says in that case Trudeau must go. Hashtag Trudeau must go. Armin says his name is Justin Castro. Justin Castro, Justin Castro. Deanna says one tiny hiccup here. It seems to happen with certain topics of many live streams now. And David says every day is a gift. Have a plan, you all. Yeah, every day is a gift because you never know if you're going to wake up. And Urban says, last I heard, the Turkish MP is in the hospital in critical but stable condition. I wonder how he feels about what he said now. Dragon says, what goes around comes around. Guess God wasn't smiling down on the Turkish MP that day. Sorry for my cynical humor. That's okay. You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And Preparedness says, I just watched the video of the Turkish MP. And Monkey says, reminds me of when political figures want Bashar al-Assad gone, they end up dead. And weird things happen like that sometimes. Now, one that a lot of people may not be aware of is you recall way back in the day when, who was it? Bush Jr., the second Bush president, said in a speech, a public speech, that Allah and the God of Israel are the same God. They're not. If you ask anyone in the Middle East, even a Muslim, they'll tell you it's not the same thing. Okay? They're not the same God. It's not the same thing. I know a lot of Christian pastors like to push it. It's just another name for God. No, it isn't. All right? That's not what it says. That's not what it means. When he said that they're the same God and that Islam is the religion of peace and all that, at the same time that he was talking about that, his house was ravaged by a storm. I don't know how many people are aware of that, but I just this made me this reminded me of that incident. Helter says God is on his throne and only God himself can judge his people. Man can be self-righteous all he wants, but there is a limit to what he can judge. And Bingo says he had some lag too. Okay, sorry about that. Well, it's not me, folks. I don't think it's me. It's probably ScrewTube messing around. They're probably putting strikes on my account because I said Trudeau or something like that. But I just think that's some really interesting irony that right when he says it, he has a coronary and falls out under the table and has to be rushed to the hospital. I just wanted to share that with everybody if you didn't see it, because what the hell. Deanna says, remember what happened when Shurchev said, we will bury you. And Armin says, video lag is CIA interference. It could be. It could be. And you might recall also, we spoke about Voldemort yesterday. That is Voldemort Zelensky from the Ukraine coming to the United States to beg for money because the package that was supposed to go to the Ukraine was blocked. It was blocked. It was voted down. Frankie says, get your foil hats. No kidding. I need to have it grafted onto my head. And Deanna says, Khrushchev. Okay. Monkey says, if Islam, Judaism, and Christianity are Abrahamic, does that mean they're a splinter group of Abrahamic groups by technicality? Yeah, because the rawest form of Orthodox Jewish faith that follows Moses directly would be the truest form, and everything else is a splinter group from that point forward, including stuff that you see within the Jewish faith, like Kabbalism and things like that, that Orthodox would shun because it's like a form of fortune telling, and you're not supposed to do that, biblically speaking. You're not supposed to divine anything. You're not supposed to get your palm read or tarot cards or Ouija boards. That's all out of the question, biblically speaking. But yeah, you start at the core with Leviticus and Deuteronomy, and as set forth through Moses by Yehovah, God. And everything from that point forward would be a splinter, quite frankly, including all forms of Christianity that were formed out of the interpretations of Yeshua, Jesus. But we had talked about back to Zelensky here really quick, because he came crying because he wasn't getting his money. And so they got a new bill. And this is from News Nation. Biden signs $200 million presidential drawdown for Ukraine. So his $110 billion bill was thrown out. So he does this instead. President Joe Biden announced Tuesday that he signed a $200 million presidential drawdown for Ukraine during a meeting with its president, Vladimir Zelensky. Zelensky came to Capitol Hill amid political battles over more U.S. funding for Ukraine, which was invaded by Russia in February of 2022. Biden had requested $61.4 billion in wartime aid for the country as part of a $110 billion package that also includes money for Israel and other national security priorities. About half of the $61 billion would go to the Defense Department to replenish weaponry it is supplying, and the other half would be for humanitarian assistance and to help the Ukrainian government function. So we're paying salaries, basically. This funding is at risk of collapsing in Congress. Republicans want stricter security changes along the U.S.-Mexico border, something Democrats have called draconian. The U.S. has already provided Ukraine $111 billion, the Associated Press said. I think it's more than that. Let me see. The Hill reports that GOP senators on Monday said any breakthrough this week on more funding appeared unlikely, meaning more talks about this would likely be pushed to January. Biden, though, said he wants a deal to be made before Christmas. And I guess his speech yesterday, and this is him whining to Congress that he needs money and promising to change the date for Christmas set by Russia when they occupied Ukraine previously to the 25th in a show of solidarity. I guess that tugged at Biden's heartstrings. So because he couldn't give him 61 and change $billion, here you go, little kid. Here's 200 million, and I'll get back to you. On Tuesday morning, Zelensky met privately with senators and House Speakers Mike Johnson, so on and so forth. After the meetings, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Zelensky's words were very powerful. He outlined in great detail the kind of help he needs and how it will help him win, Schumer said. Zelensky made it clear, and we all made it clear, that if we lose, Putin wins. And this will be very, very dangerous for the United States, Schumer said, adding the Ukrainian president said he needs the aid quickly. We cannot let Putin influence through any surrogate what we need to do for Ukraine, Schumer said. What do we need to do for Ukraine? Urban says another comment auto-deleted. I was trying to comment on the Charlie Hebdo incident in Europe. M. Prophet is the top of the hierarchy and is not to be disrespected under threat of neutralization. Yeah, I remember that at the French newspaper, right? Armand says the Christian group that will survive the ages is the Amish. It's because they don't have cell phones. And Cruising says I could use $200 million to maintain the functionality of my operational security. Me too. And Helter says Zelensky's advisors said this about him. He deludes himself. The money he's receiving will last him a month, maybe two. And Monkey said should have thrown the money into a huge-ass loan Ukraine would have to pay back instead of it as a non-loan giveaway. And Urban said Ukraine forced out the true patriarch of the Orthodox Church and replaced him with a plant to be at the head of a new fake church. And then Dragon said one Austrian artist was in a similar state in 1945, just like Zelensky. Was he? Gee, I wonder who you mean. If people know their history, they get the reference there, Dragon. They get the reference. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like, sweet old, dear old, lovable old Uncle Joe gave him a little pat on his head and said, don't worry, Voldemort. Here, stick this in your pocket. Don't tell your mother. Don't tell your mother I gave you that, and hit me back up in a few months. Oh man, unreal. But that's the world we live in, folks. I don't know what to tell you. And he's drawing down money from other countries too, isn't he? I wonder where it's all going. And Russia, again, probably would have been done by now. And people say, and the U.S. pushes this, and I've heard this echoed even from people who are commenting from Europe. Oh, he has to be stopped here. Putin has to be stopped in the Ukraine because then he's going to try to take over the whole world. People have been saying that about Russia since Napoleon. They haven't done it yet. Okay. They haven't gotten that far yet. Bingo says Biden should give Zelensky some of his China money. No kidding. Oh, he's not giving up any of his personal money. Only the taxpayer dollars he has access to. And Frankie says, remember, he gets 10% back. He probably does. That's a possibility because, like his son Hunter said, the old man's got to get 10%. He's got to get 10%. I need 10%. Where's my cut? Where's my slice of the pie? I want to put my dirty little fingers in everybody's pie and get a taste. My fingers are clean, by the way, but just making the point. Government loves putting its dirty little fingers in everybody's pie and getting a nice taste. Actually, they stick their finger in your pie and they wipe it off on your shirt, and that's your share, and then they take the pie away. That's about how it works. as far as taxes are concerned, because we're getting taxed from every single direction, constantly, constantly, constantly. And since we're in the Ukraine, we may as well skip over to Poland. Now, we've talked about Poland a little bit recently in the last couple of months, and I made a couple of predictions about Poland, and it looks like I may be correct. It looks like I might be right. Because as you recall, some time ago, Poland said, we don't want any part of what's going on. Stop sending supplies to the Ukraine through Poland, because the United States had been supplying Ukraine through Poland. And he said, they said, enough. We don't want anything out. No more trucks, no more planes. Stop sending stuff to Ukraine out of here. Okay? Then suddenly there was a big loan. You remember this? We talked about this story like a month or two ago. The United States made a huge loan to Poland so that they could upgrade their military security. Then after that, they had an election, and influence was placed on that election by the European Union, who said, well, if your election goes this way, then you'll have access to all of that funding that we were going to loan to you that we've been holding back because we don't like your current policies. Now, all of a sudden, there's a change of heart about the Ukraine in Poland. And I was like, watch, now that they've had a big political shift and all the money is rolling in from the United States and the European Union, they're going to change their mind. And this comes from Ukraińska Pravda. Newly elected Polish PM says his government will demand total mobilization of the West to help the Ukraine. Yeah, I should get a gold star, I think. The newly elected Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, said that his government will demand total mobilization of the West to help Ukraine. Onet, citing Tusk during his speech in the Sejm, where he presented the program of actions and the composition of the new government as reported by European Pravda. Quote, I can no longer listen to politicians who talk about being tired of the situation in Ukraine. They are telling the Ukrainian President Zelensky that they are tired of the situation. Couldn't resist, folks. Details. Tusk said that an attack on Ukraine is an attack on all of us. The prime minister called for unity on the issue of Ukraine, which he is convinced should bring Poles together. The new prime minister added that Poland's assistance to Ukraine is very important, but at the same time indicated that Warsaw should be persistent when it comes to the interests of Polish farmers in particular. Quote again, but we must remember what the war is about, that Ukrainians are fighting for something extremely important, that the battle began on the Maidan, that they are fighting to join the community of the Western world. They want Ukraine to be a democratic legal state like Western countries, and that they are fighting for it now, Tusk emphasized. So once again, and I'll catch up a couple of comments here really quick. Urban says, while censorship is tight today, I was trying to comment on American weaponry meant for Ukraine ending in the hands of Hamas. Frankie says, Biden is like Oprah, you get a cut, you get a cut, you get a cut. No kidding. You get a cut, you get a cut. Urban says, the Polish PM Tusk has parents who were slave labor for the Nazis. Why would he go against Russia, who essentially beat the Nazis? Yeah, they did help win the war, and that's where you got the whole separation of the German state, putting up the wall in the first place and all the rest of that. But yeah, I called it. I was like, watch, when Biden gave the loan to them in the first place, gave the loan to Poland, that was the first thing that that occurred to me. I was like, there's going to be a shift, because he gave them the loan a few weeks after the the previous administration in Poland said, we don't want you trucking your equipment into Ukraine through our country. So he gives them a loan. Then the European Union offers them more money. Then the election happens, and the elected officials lean all in that direction because they want that cash. Because, you know, any politician will sell their constituents out for a few dollars. And now all of a sudden they want to back the Ukraine. They want to back the Ukraine. And preparedness says they're wanting their neighbor to be stabilized in fear that they are next. Has the Islamification of Poland begun yet? No, because they've been very tight on their borders. But relaxing that is one of the stipulations to get the money from the not from the United Nations, from the European Union. European Union wants them to let up on their border strictness in order to get some of that money. So you may be seeing that very shortly. And Brian made a $15 donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. Always, always appreciated. Dusty, appreciate you. And there is Dusty. Oh, you can't see Dusty. There she is, sitting in the chair behind me if you are watching and not just listening. Thank you again. It means a lot. Any help I can get is very much appreciated. Thank you, Brian. Urban says, now Poland will be a true vassal state of the European Union and their land will be used for NATO bases. Congratulations and have fun. Yeah, and if they start moving that crap into Poland, there will definitely be a target. They will definitely be a target of a superpower like Russia. Absolutely. Because they'll be used as a force to try to intimidate Russia. Oh, look, we're sitting in Poland now, too. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. What are you going to do about it, Russia? What are you going to do about it? Eventually, Russia will go and smash Poland, and the rest of the European Union will be sitting there on their thumbs. Oh, well, sorry, Poland. Sorry about that. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to make a prediction like that and have it be true. I'd hate to see anything bad happen to Poland. I was impressed with Poland and their strict border policies and taking a stand and saying, hey, you want to have a proxy war with Ukraine? You do it somewhere else. Quit using Poland for that. I was like, okay, Poland, yeah, good for you. Now they're screwed. Now they're screwed because their government wanted those big checks. Those big checks were more important than their people. And all money isn't good money. All money is not good money. And sometimes you're better off without it. Speaking as someone who's been there, when I worked for the Juvenile Justice Authority, I was making big money. That's a six-figure salary. I've lost that all now. And without it, I'm happier. I'm happier now with a good wife in a nice, stable location than what I was dealing with to make that kind of money. Lost it all anyways because I got in trouble with the IRS and issues with my ex and everything else. But you know how it is. Monkey says Poland has land bordering Russia, the Kaliningrad, or however it's spelt, Oblast area. Okay. I don't remember all of my maps. I know it's up there, but I don't remember exactly where everything is all the time. Now, we're going to bounce all the way back to Georgia. We're going to bounce from Poland to Georgia here. And we had talked about this the other day, local story, where a woman was arrested trying to set fire to Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthhouse, which is a national heritage site now. And making the point that the article doesn't talk about her, wouldn't name her, wouldn't give a reason why it was happening. Nothing, no information except that she was caught trying to burn it. But it was filmed because people who were visiting that area saw what she was doing and filmed her with their cell phones. Okay? Black woman. Obviously a black woman. Now, Warnock Senator Warnock is chiming in on it because he needs brownie points. And this comes from WRDW television, because again, this is another local story. Warnock is praying for the woman accused of trying to burn down Martin Luther King's site. Is he? Does he pray? I don't know that he does. I don't. I think that Warnock, my personal opinion, I think Warnock's a con artist. I don't. He's supposed to be a minister. That doesn't mean anything in today's day and age. Most big religious leaders are frauds. They really are, in my opinion. They're frauds. Okay. I think he is too. The fact that he's in politics is even worse. I don't trust him. I don't trust him at all. But apparently he's praying for this woman. There's a picture of her there. They're showing you a picture from the back, but this is a black woman, even though none of the news articles specified that. Atlanta, Georgia, U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock said over the weekend the woman accused of attempting to set fire to the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth home is obviously troubled. You probably saw the news that an obviously very troubled young woman tried to set fire to the birth home of Martin Luther King Jr., Warnock said in his Sunday sermon at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, the most political church in the entire country. Ebenezer Baptist Church used to be the church where Martin Luther King was. Now it's a political hotbed. Anybody who's anybody in big lawmaking goes there. If Hillary Clinton visits Georgia, she'll go to that church. If Biden comes to Georgia, if, name your politician, bigwig politician, breezes through Georgia, they're going to drop by this church because that's what you do. This church is not about learning anything about God. It's about politics. And Warnock is on the board. Quoting again, we're not so much mad at her as much as we're praying for her, for she is obviously troubled. They have her name here now. Lenisha Chantrice Henderson was arrested and charged last week with criminal attempt to commit arson in the second degree and interfere with government property after police said she tried to burn down the property and she's being held without bond. It still doesn't say she's black. I don't think anywhere in this article. We know somebody who can reach her and can lift her, Warnock, who is a senior pastor at the same church King served in, said, we know someone who loves her. Anyone here know a God who looks beyond your faults and sees your needs? Oh my God, this guy. On December 7th, a tourist from Utah recorded a cell phone video, and here's the video footage of her splashing gasoline on the porch. That allegedly shows, because you have to say allegedly, Henderson pouring liquid from a red gas can on the home's front porch. He said he stopped her from walking up the stairs again with a lighter. Later, 2 retired New York City Police Department officers subdued her until Atlanta police could arrive. They were in a tour group. And again, with a politician with somebody doing sign language in the corner, as if there's no closed caption on anything. Maybe Senator Warnock is appealing to Lenisha Chantrice because he doesn't want to get in trouble. Here's your big conspiracy theory of the day. Conspiracy, put on your foil hats. Wouldn't it be interesting? And I'm not saying this is what happened. Just conspiracy theory time. Wouldn't it be interesting if Warnock hired her to do that? And now he's got a cover for her because she got caught. Set her up to do it so that they could claim victimhood. If she didn't get caught, they'd be like, "Oh, white folks burned down Martin Luther King's birthplace." How's that for a stretch? And Deanna wants to know if I'm going to talk about Fannie Willis. Monkey says MLK Jr. would be rolling around in his grave with what happened in the last 50 to 70 years. No kidding. Boondocks did an episode on that where they, in their reality, he was in a coma rather than dead, and he woke up and looked around and was like, "What's wrong with you people?" And Savage says, "Well, she's brainwashed, and it's a small load of wash, let me tell you." And Urban says, "As far as I recall from school, MLK denounced all forms of violence and intimidation. And speaking of agenda, street art, where's Banksy these days?" Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, MLK was modeling Gandhi's approach. And Helter says the Bible has strong warnings about teachers leading people astray. Yeah, you'll burn real bad. Warnock's doing the very exact thing this quotes warnings pastors not to do. And Monkey said state politicians can't help her, only Biden can, since it's going to be federal charges. And Frankie says it was holy water, not gasoline. Oh yeah. And Nature Nerd said, did Cornell Douglas McGregor's channel just get wiped off the face of YouTube? He was giving non-mainstream updates on the Ukraine war. I have no idea. And Urban said, few black leaders have done as much harm to the black community as Al Sharpton has. Yeah. And then there's Jesse Jackson, who retired just recently. And if you really look back on his career, has accomplished absolutely zero. He has accomplished nothing at all. There's nothing there. And it's really sad, actually, that with all his decades and decades, his claim to fame is that he knew Martin Luther King Jr., or at least met him. I don't know how well he knew him. And and that he had a hand in Ebonics and the phrasing African American. Are you proud of him yet? There's a really interesting book about Jesse Jackson called The Shakedown. The Shakedown, Exposing the Real Jesse Jackson. You can find it for cheap on Amazon. I recommend checking it out. It's again, he accomplished nothing except for race baiting. Same thing with Al Sharpton. What can you really say he accomplished? What did he actually get done besides race baiting and pissing people off and lawsuits and causing problems? Merv says, if you're going to talk about Fannie Willis, I want to know how her love affair is going with that gangbanger she indicted. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that church, the Ebenezer Baptist Church, like I said, if you're Bernie Sanders and you happen to be passing through Georgia, you're going to go there. That's what politicians do. They all hang out there and they talk, which, especially if it's a 501c3 charity, you're not supposed to have politics in the church, but they get away with it. They get away with it. And it's just ugly, unfortunately. It's just a political hotbed down there, and Warnock's at the head of the table, and that church pays him a considerable salary. They give him a huge clothing allowance, a huge rent allowance. Lots of money comes through that church to Warnock on top of the money that he already earns. You want to have some sympathy for somebody, Warnock. How about your wife when you tried to run her over? You all probably remember that his wife had accused him of trying to hit her with his car, and that's why the police had to come out. Booger says, I'm not sure who did more damage to the black community, Farrakhan or Warnock. I don't know. Farrakhan's been at it a lot longer. And Manuel says, how likely are we into a cyber attack? I don't know. It's not outside the realm of possibility that there could be a cyber attack. But against who and for what? Because a lot of times those cyber attacks, they don't really work, honestly. Data is stolen, but then the data gets changed. Something is held for ransom. You see this at hospitals and things like that, but with large transactions like that, no matter how many times you move them around, it's not like on TV. In real life, every single big transaction could be traced. So 99% of the time when like the water department pays off a hacker that shut off their pumps, they get that money back. They get that cryptocurrency back or whatever. Monkey says, I bet Trump wouldn't be able to get to that church. Probably not. You know, they probably would not invite him. And Monkey says only the approved Democrats and a few, especially Republicans, are allowed, probably. Yeah, it's very extremely left leaning. It's way out on the tip of the left wing. Remember, Warnock has referred to himself as the queer pastor and the trans pastor and things like that. I forget the exact phrasing, but he's implied that he's in bed with the alphabet mafia, to pun intended, in bed, or should I say not intended, but he's in bed with the alphabet mafia and that, you know, rainbow happiness at his church because Bibles and stuff. We're going to jump to the New York Post really quickly, since we're on the subject of wasting money. Planned Parenthood took $1.8 billion in taxpayer money in 3 years with a $90 million loan from the C virus. Planned Parenthood received $1.78 billion in taxpayer funds between fiscal year 2019 and 2021, including another $90 million in small business loans during the C virus pandemic, according to a new government report. Remember, Trump shut that money off. Biden turned it back on. Planned Parenthood Federation of America. That's kind of an oxymoron. Planned Parenthood. Shouldn't they be Unplanned Parenthood, since their main focus is the extermination of what they refer to as a parasitic growth inside a woman's body? The nation's largest abortion provider received $1.4 billion in direct payments from Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program, according to a Government Accountability Office report released Tuesday. The abortion giant also got $148 million through Department of Health and Human Services grants or agreements and $90 million through Paycheck Protection Program loans. The report alarmed congressional Republicans who noted the PPP loans have been designed to help small businesses with fewer than 500 employees, and alleged Planned Parenthood illegally applied for the financial assistance. Actually, that is illegal. That's a good point, and that's probably the point of this article. They're just tacking on that they already made like $2 billion anyways, but that $90 million is for loans for small businesses, and they're not a small business. Quote, it's appalling that big abortion providers are continuing to receive billions of dollars in federal taxpayer funding, according to Senator Marsha Blackburn. At least $90 million was taken in small business loans during the C virus, according to a new government report. They already said that. I hate it when articles repeat themselves that way. While small businesses struggled to make ends meet during the pandemic, Planned Parenthood illegally siphoned over $90 million from the Paycheck Protection Program, specifically designed to help our mom and pop shops keep the doors open, which didn't happen. They got crushed because they were forced to close up shop anyways, while the big retailers stayed open. Planned Parenthood is a nonprofit organization. Yeah, sure it is. I wonder how much the CEOs of Planned Parenthood make in a year. Nonprofit. With around 600 centers nationwide in fiscal year 2020, the group performed, 383,460 abortions, according to its annual report, its highest reported figure. That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking. I wonder how much Planned Parenthood CEO makes. I'm going to look that up real quick because now I'm curious. So I'll look that up. Here we go. How much does a Planned Parenthood CEO make? The average salary of an affiliate for the Planned Parenthood earns $317,000 a year. That's pretty good. And that that the upper echelon of salary could be as high as 1.2 million. Wow. Nonprofit, 1.2 million a year. Indeed. Indeed. Nature Nerd says churches shouldn't be entangled by politics, and modern politics shouldn't alter doctrine just in case modern political ideologies are flawed. And he goes on to say Medicaid should not be paying Planned Parenthood since it's taxpayer money. And Raccoon says, why don't they go after Scientology? That's the biggest scam on earth. And Monkey said that's a slap to actual small businesses. Yeah. And Nature Nerd says, too bad you can't opt out of Medicare so your paycheck is bigger. No kidding. And Helter says Planned Parenthood's entire philosophy can be summed up with the phrase, and we hate babies. The phrase would actually describe the source of income. And Urban says he's pro-choice, but I consider Planned Parenthood a shady organization. And Monkey said there would have to be a couple of those in the data that had abortions performed when the woman was assaulted. See, now, I'm not an advocate for abortion. I don't like the idea of the practice. I can understand a desire for it. If you were assaulted and that resulted in a pregnancy, or there's a serious medical situation. Hey, we don't know if the mother and or the baby are going to live. So this is on the table. Okay, I get it. I understand that. Most of the abortions performed are a retroactive form of birth control. I've talked about this before. It's someone was irresponsible at the time, and they're like, crap, I don't want a kid. Well, they're disposable nowadays, like everything else, like plastic lunch trays and foam cups. We just throw it away. That's the attitude. That sounds, people say, wow, that's really insensitive. Tell me it looks any different than that. I didn't want this. I could have been responsible at the time. I can't just blame dude because we were both there. You were both there, right? You could have said, you know what, Chuck? I'd be more comfortable if we had some birth control, or maybe we should do this instead. You can figure it out if you wanted to. You didn't. And many of you know my story about the woman that I knew in Boston. I can't remember her name. That had six abortions. And then after the sixth one, there was a medical complication and they told her she couldn't have kids anymore. And she's crying. It's like, oh, what am I going to do? What if I want to have a child one day? You had six. You didn't want them. And you couldn't be bothered with birth control at the time. And that's your fallback. Oh, you know what? No big deal. I'll just get an abortion. That's how most people truly view it. I'm sorry. Call me insensitive if you want to. That I have a problem with, especially if tax dollars are going to pay for it. You want to go out and do that? Fine. You pay for it. Why do I have to fund it? And again, like I said, there are people that are going to disagree. That's fine. Oh, you're not a man. You're not a woman. What do you know? Yeah. Don't talk about men's issues then. Because you're not a man. You can talk about whatever you want. You should be able to. It shouldn't be exclusive. It shouldn't be exclusive to a certain concept or a certain idea. But yeah, that bothers me that they make that kind of money, that their CEOs, the pay ranges from $317,000 all the way up to $1.2 million a year, but call themselves a nonprofit. That's like Goodwill calling itself a nonprofit, and their CEOs are making millions. Doesn't quite jive, does it? Especially if you claim to be providing a service. Oh, we're helping people. We're helping people. We're a charity. Where's my money? Where's my money is the attitude. Some charity. And Raccoon says, my sister used to be a social worker. She had a young hooker who kept getting abortions like multiple a year. So she was ordered to get her tubes tied at the taxpayer's expense. Wow, that's brutal, but I get it. I get it. And Urban says the unfortunate part of the issue is that abortion is encouraged by the current thing. That I do not agree with, and I understand what you mean. Yeah, again, it's we live in a disposable society, and that has transferred to people as well. Especially you being in Canada and their whole euthanization program. Now they're making sick and elderly people disposable too. You don't need them. Yeah, just knock them off. Taxpayer expense. Bump them off. But with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. We're at the top of the hour. Again, this is Coffee Talk. So you're listening to and or watching Coffee Talk. You can find me at Coffee Talk live on YouTube as well as Prepper University. Or you can find me at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Special thanks again to Brian for making a donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. Very, very much appreciated. Yes, indeed. And thank you to everyone else for joining us here today. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, got something out of it. And with that, I will go ahead and wrap things up, and we will see you again tomorrow.